Hello everyone, and this is Ali Hassan again, and this is our fourth presentation on project management for all. It's on project procurement management. I'd like to introduce Mr. Mohamad Sherhan to present this presentation. Mr. Mohamad Sherhan, he is a professional engineer and he is Vice President of Engineering in GHD. And I had the pleasure of working with him for some time. Mr. Mohammed has more than 30 years of experience in major projects in heavy industries like mining, oil and gas, power and infrastructure. His area of expertise includes, but not limited to, project management, project evaluation planning, procurement, contracts and strategic sourcing, engineering management, project delivery, model development. Okay, so I leave it to Mr. Mohammed.
Hi everyone, my name is Mohamad Sherhan. I'm Vice President Engineering at GHD North America. At the start, I want to thank you all for your time to listen to this experience and knowledge sharing initiative started by Mr. Ali Hassan. Second, I want to thank Ali for trusting me and giving this opportunity to talk to you. Today, I'll be talking about project procurement management. Project procurement management, as defined in PM book, is the process necessary to purchase or acquire product services or results from outside the project team. Project procurement include plan procurement, conduct procurement, and control procurement. Planning procurement include documenting decision, specifying potential sellers, identifying your contracting strategy, your contracting methodology, and your types of contracts. That also include knowing your organization legal commitment, terms and conditions, what exactly their preference vendors, and all that information should be listed in your procurement plan. Conduct procurement, that include obtaining sellers and vendors response through selection of a seller or vendor list, award a contract, and of course obtaining the response through an RFI or RFQ or RFP. Then you conduct a technical analysis and commercial analysis, and also you will start negotiating the contract terms and condition, payment methodology, and the jurisdiction where which law is applied. And at the end of that negotiation, that process, you will award and execute the contract. Then at this point, we finish the planning procurement and the procurement, conducting the procurement itself. Now we have an active contract. Now we go to control procurement. That's at this point where we will be managing relationship, monitoring performance, and managing changes and closing the contract. You do that by setting the expectation with your vendors and your sellers and managing the relationship, making sure that you treat these vendors and sellers as partners. They are very important aspect and factors to your success on a project as a PM. Monitoring procurement performance is very an important aspects. You need, after you award the contract, you want to make sure that you identify KPIs and also checkpoints with your vendor or contractors, and you establish the performance measurement methodology. As you do testing, you do shop testing, you do progress reporting on site construction, or you do milestone reviews if it's a development or a manufacturing contract. And make sure you, during the control procurement, the most important part is also managing changes. Every contract or most of the contract will have changes. Changes is a nature of project and always will happen on projects and contracts. You just need to make sure that you have a process in place to deal with these changes. Okay, get the right approval, get the right execution, make sure the scope is well defined, make sure basically the expectation is well defined, and make sure what's in and out of the scope is well defined. And also you need to look at the labors, T's and C's, what exactly included in the contract, and making sure when you start the closing of the contract, making sure that you have all the scope items being identified and met, all the subcontractors get paid, all the labor gets paid, because you don't want to expose your project to a lien claim or a construction contractors. And also you want to make sure that you address the warranty period, the warranty time, you do the non-conformance, and basically any lost item in the contract during the contracting period before you sign the contractor release form. Okay. The procurement concept, key concepts in procurement are legal obligation. There can be a significant legal obligation and penalties. PM most likely doesn't need to be expert in contracting law, but need to know enough to manage the contract and the terms and conditions. Always, I would say, we need to seek legal department advice. You want to make sure the lawyers and the legal department are on your side when you start negotiating or executing a contract. The trap we always fell into as project managers, sometimes we think the contract is the scope of work. I know what needs to be done, I know what to be manufactured, I know what it needs to be constructed. That's not enough. We need to know the terms and conditions. I used to manage PMs and I used to manage procurement. The difficult part is to have project managers and construction managers know exactly the terms and conditions of that contract, the payment methodology, what's in, what's out, number of hours, working conditions, all these details. You need to know about them because they will have significant financial impact on your project. Project procurement management involves agreements between buyers and sellers, can be simple or complex. If we are buying off-shelf items like tools or equipment or material, it will be like a simple transaction. But if we are talking about custom design or design build contract, that will be very difficult and complex contract to manage. So the agreement and the arrangement can be simple or complex depending on what you are procuring for your project. Agreement should be exactly state what you need to deliver or purchase. We want to make sure that your scope is very clear, your expectation is very clear, your technical specification is clear. It's very important to have a black and white answer for your expectation, especially on the technical side, to make sure that you get what you need for your project. PM should know who is authorized to sign and limit of signing authority. So as PMs, we have limit on what we can sign and approve. You want to make sure that you don't exceed that limit by exposing yourself and your organization to a commitment on a contract or a change in the contract before you get approval from senior management. So it's very important for you as a PM to understand your limit of authority, what exactly you can sign as contract, all value, or the changes of the contract. And always refer to the organization procedure and regulation, whatever they have in place. Seller may be identified as contractor, vendor, service provider, or supplier. Any one of these can be identified as a seller if someone will provide a product or service to your project, and that can be identified as subcontractor or vendor or service provider. Buyer may be the owner of final product or a subcontractor or service requester. Anyone can be the buyer. It doesn't need to be the project owner to be the buyer. Depend on the contract, depend on the project. That transaction is different from one project to the other, and always depend on what we are buying and who's buying to what. For international contracts, the legal jurisdiction should be clearly mentioned. You want to make sure that you understand the basically the local laws and local labor and contracting laws to make sure that you understand the risk you are exposing yourself and your company to. Procurement steps: prepare the procurement statement as we talked in the planning stage. You want to make sure that when you start conducting the procurement, you prepare the procurement statement of work and the scope of work, scope of supply, whatever you have document in your line of practice. Prepare cost estimate to determine the budget. It's very important for us to have an idea about what's the value of that contract. That should have been happened prior to you purchasing that service or that product. It's important for us to know what we are planning or what we are buying, to have an idea in our reporting, and it's required as part of your project reporting and monitoring. You need to know the forecast, and you will not have an idea about the forecast if you don't know the value of the contracts and procurement transactions you are conducting. Advertise the opportunity. You want to make sure, depend on the organization you are working with, if it's public sector or private sector. Public sector, you have to advertise it and make it public, and private sector, you can choose to single source, a direct sourcing, or also you can limit the invitation to participant in the proposals submission by with the people or partners or vendors that you trust and you know they can provide the value you're looking for. Short list of qualified sellers. You want to make sure that you run RFIs or RFQ to understand who are the vendors that interested in. First, they have the capacity. Second, they are interested in. And third, they understand my need and my wants to make sure they will going to bid on the job when I tender it out. Prepare and submit a proposal by the seller as owner team or contractor or subcontractor, whatever the organization I'm in. Make sure that we send the proposal out to the identified potential sellers and basically asking them to bid on the job. Usually we recommend our buyers as a PM. I want my buyer to contact these sellers and make sure he or she can check with them to see if they are interested, if they were going to bid on the job or not. Because I don't want to be surprised at the end of the bid period that I don't have the right bidders or I don't have bidders at all. So just make sure that you do your due diligence by reaching out to the potential vendors or sellers and just ask them, did you receive the RFP? Are you planning to bid on it or not? Just for information, no more than that during the tender period. It's just requesting if they were going to bid or not for your information. And then after you receive the proposals, of course, you will conduct technical bid evaluation. That's where you're going to engage the right people from your organization, technical people. They are the one who set the scope and specification for what you are buying. So, and they will gonna create the technical bid evaluation. Also, you have to perform a cost evaluation, the commercial part, to make sure that it is in line with your budget. You are getting what you have most of the time. vendors or contractors, they may have exceptions to your scope or your pricing scheme or what's included in your tender. So you want to make sure that you capture all these exceptions, because some of these exceptions or conditions the sellers can have, it will result in financial impact on your project during that procurement cycle. So you want to make sure that commercially you are covered from all sides to make sure that you cover, you can compare apple to apple when you include all-inclusive cost with all-inclusive scope to make sure that you compare the two together. Perform the final technical quality and commercial evaluation. Is it preferred that this step to be done by cold eyes? A person or people are not involved in the procurement cycle at the beginning, just to make sure that they have different perspective and different look to see if we met everything we need, if we have everything covered, pricing, conducting, and everything detailed to make sure that we got what we need. Finalize negotiation and preparation and signing of a contract. Make sure you document that and keep a copy to yourself and your organization. As a PM, I highly recommend you keep a copy of your contract to make sure you know exactly the terms and conditions, what's included, what's not included, what's in your scope, what's not in your scope when you are managing your contracting. It's very important for you as a PM to know the detail of that contract you are managing. If you don't know the detail, if you don't know the terms and conditions, you may expose yourself and the organization you're working for to higher risk financially or legally. Contract mutually binding agreement between the buyer and seller to provide the specified product, services, or results. It is a legal document subject to change. As we said, change will happen and always there. So we just need to establish a process to manage that change. And the change has to be agreed by both parties. Contract types. There is so many formats or types of contracts. Lump sum or fixed price contract. That's when you have a well-defined scope and you have ability to have contractors can execute on that to reduce your financial risk. Cost plus contract, that's where you're gonna negotiate with the contract, their cost plus their profit, so that's what it's called, cost plus. So their cost plus agreed upon profit margin they will have. Time and material is easy to understand. The scope is not clear. That's when we don't know exactly. We are still in development of the scope, so it's easier for us to go with the time and material. Unit pricing contract, bilateral contract, and unit contract, implied contract, and express contract. As I said, there are so many ways of contracting in all times. You, as a PM, you want to make sure you understand the terms and conditions and you understand what's the expectation from the organization and understand the needs and wants from your vendors and suppliers. You have to remember your sellers and suppliers, they are an important stakeholders on your project and their success can be part of your success. You cannot be successful by having unsuccessful vendors and buyers because it's one integrated team and you want to make sure you take care of them to make sure they will deliver the quality you are looking for. I hope you get benefit from this, and if you have any question or information needed, please contact Mr. Ali Hassan, and he can definitely reach me as well, and he can share my contact info as well. You can find me on LinkedIn as Mohamad Sherhan. Thank you all, and appreciate your time, and wish you all the success in your career. Thanks.
Thank you, Mohammed, and with this we conclude our presentation, and we hope to see you in the future presentation. Thank you.